Now at 5, Governor Abbott discussing the border crisis in the very city where he's sent migrants, who he's blaming for the continued problem.
And more cloud cover this evening after heavy rain fell in some areas today. Your first warning forecast is coming up.
And former President Trump is in Michigan talking to auto workers on strike, how his trip so far has been different than President Biden's visit yesterday. And tonight, former President Trump will be in Detroit for a primetime speech to auto workers.
And this comes a day after President Biden joined a picket line himself. NBC's Jay Gray reports from Wayne, Michigan.
Good evening, and it is day 2 of politics and picketing. Today, former President Donald Trump spending some time just outside of Detroit and talking with auto workers. He travels here for a rally this evening, but getting some pushback from UAW members because his event is being held in a non-union shop. It's a parts and distribution center, but it's a non-union area. He does expect to have some of those union members, though, in attendance, and does hope to talk with them here. It's a much different scenario, though, than yesterday when we saw the president here and on the picket line. He was actually wearing a UAW hat while he talked with those striking workers and made it very clear where he stands as far as the tug of war between the big 3 U.S. automakers and these workers that are on strike. He is clearly in their corner and said so, sharply criticizing the automakers for not giving significant raises to these workers who have walked out. Let's talk a little bit about the actual strike itself with the politics surrounding all of this. It is now in day 13. There are more than 18,000 union members who have left the production line for the picket line. And look, union leaders say that number, it could climb quickly and very soon if they don't come to some kind of common ground, the two sides in this. I think the only thing the automakers and the union agree on, though, at this point, is they are still a long way from any type of deal. That's the latest here in Wayne, Michigan. I'm Jay Gray. Now back to you.
Know this fact. Texas has bused 15,800 to New York. Where do these other people come from? The Biden administration. The lead importer of migrants to New York is not Texas. It's Joe Biden.
Today, Texas Governor Greg Abbott is in New York City discussing an issue the city of New York and the state of Texas continue to grapple with, the migrant crisis. New York Mayor Eric Adams recently said his city could be destroyed if it doesn't get more help to manage the flood of migrants arriving there in New York. In a speech to the Manhattan Institute, the Texas governor says the problem here in Texas is far worse. The governor's visit is part of his effort to relieve the burden on Texas border cities while also trying to send a message to the sanctuary cities.
Our Capitol correspondent Monica Madden has more from his visit and the impact of the busing initiative.
What's going on is unsustainable.
Speaking from the Big Apple at a conservative think tank Wednesday, Governor Greg Abbott talked about the 15,800 migrants he bused to New York since April of 2022.
Dealing with in New York, what you are seeing and witnessing in the state is a tiny fraction of what is happening every single day in the state of Texas.
New York Mayor Eric Adams has called Abbott a, quote, madman for the initiative.
My city is hurting. This could undermine this entire city. My children, my families, the long-term impact to migrants.
And says the influx of migrants could cost New York upwards of $12 billion.
We should not be experiencing this, and we're going to continue to push for the right funding.
But Texas's busloads represent a small fraction of the 116,000 asylum seekers who've arrived in New York since April 2022.
Governor Abbott has won the narrative. We have never seen a response to a migration issue in New York or in D.C. or in Philadelphia or Chicago as we have seen. So he's made his point.
The Texas governor said Wednesday the Democratic mayors should be blaming the Biden administration.
They must prevail upon their president for more than just money. They need a change in policy.
But no one is looking at the problem holistic. In the process, we are beginning to lose the consensus of asylum.
Monica Madden reporting for us. Now, Mayor Adams says he thinks the Remain in Mexico policy should be reinstated, a policy Governor Abbott also supports.
And going in depth on this, a national NBC News poll finds voters overwhelmingly say they trust Republicans to do a better job than Democrats dealing with border security, crime, the economy, and immigration. Now, when asked about border security, 50% of the 1,000 voters said the Republican Party does a better job compared to 20% favoring Democrats. When asked about dealing with immigration, 45% of voters sided with the Republican Party, 27% with Democrats.
Today, Mexico's president said his country will meet with foreign ministers from around Latin America to resolve the unprecedented migration happening. The country has seen record numbers of migrants at its northern and southern borders. Rail operator Union Pacific says thousands of tons of freight are being held up as train traffic to Mexico via Eagle Pass has stopped. Migrants have been seen clinging to trains to get into the U.S. The Mexican government's migration authority has deployed over 260 buses and vans to move over 8,000 migrants from the southern city of Tapachula near the border with Guatemala to other parts of the country. Costa Rica's president also ordered a state of emergency over the sharp rise of people passing through that country.
First warning weather with Chief Meteorologist David Yeomans.
Well, I'm sure you've noticed it's been a bit cloudier today, even in areas that have not seen rainfall. I'm sure you've also noticed, though, it didn't really keep the temperatures down. It's a hot evening here in southeast Austin, 93 under mostly cloudy skies at the Whittlesea South camera, always on our website. We have seen a few showers and storms throughout the day today, mainly west of Austin, but you can see just as quickly as they developed this afternoon, they have decreased. This is just some clutter on the radar, not actually rain. Dry right now in the Austin area. We do have a little thunderstorm on I-10, bringing some welcome rain from Flatonia down to Schulenburg. Overall, though, rain is on the downtrend over the next few hours. This comes, though, after a persistent morning thunderstorm brought nearly an inch of radar-estimated rain northwest of Fredericksburg. Other heavy totals near Mason. You can always find your rain gauges on KXAN.com as well. Coming up, I'll show you the radar forecast for the next several hours, the Texas football outlook this weekend, and also when stormier weather returns for more of us.
All right, David, thank you very much. A Rockdale teacher has resigned amid allegations she had a relationship with a high school student. The district received the report of the accusations last Thursday and reported it to police the same day. It's also been reported to the Department of Family and Protective Services. The district also completed an investigation and reported the situation to the Texas Education Agency today.
The U.S. soldier who ran into North Korea has been released. What the United States is saying about his return.
We told you an audit found big problems with the Austin Animal Center. Today, the recommendations to fix those problems.
And it's known as the happiest place on earth, and adults are paying a lot for that happiness. The science behind Disney adults.
Travis King, the American soldier who sprinted from South Korea into North Korea 2 months ago, is now back in American custody. The handover happened today. Now, there are unanswered questions, including why King went to North Korea in the first place. His fate also remains uncertain, having been declared AWOL by the U.S. government. That could mean military jail time, forfeiture of pay, or a dishonorable discharge. Now, at the time he crossed the border, King was supposed to be headed to Fort Bliss in El Paso following his release from prison in South Korea for an assault conviction.
An independent review and city-led audit into the Austin Animal Center finds that the shelter isn't fulfilling its duties to help strays. Now, the reports detailed extreme overcrowding, poor living conditions, and incomplete data. Austin Animal Center Chief Officer Don Bland says the shelter has seen a severe dip in adoption rates since the pandemic. The audits recommend city leadership establish a new policy balancing community intake needs and no-kill shelter goals, while also creating a plan to address issues and collect accurate data.
Those animals have no voice, and so we have to be the voice for them, and it is unfortunate that it has come down to this. We have to advocate for them.
Our digital reporter Kelsey Thompson dives into more details from the audit's findings at KXAN.com.
Well, the next time you float down the San Marcos River, you may not be able to bring your beverage of choice. Why the city is considering banning specific containers in city parks.
Another very hot early autumn day today. Temperatures so far hitting 96, well above average in Austin. Preliminary data shows that we are currently living through a tie for our hottest year on record to this point. Your first morning forecast right after the break.
Well, you might want to keep the six-pack at home. A ban on non-reusable containers could be coming to the city of San Marcos.
The city council shows support for possibly creating a single-use container ban at all city parks. KXAN's Sarah Al-Sheikh explains how it's worked in a nearby city.
72-degree crystal clear waters. But beneath the surface of the San Marcos River lies a different story.
When we have our big cleanup, it is in the tons. Filling our kayaks up to the brims every weekend when we go do this stuff, a dumpster full of trash.
A common sight.
Of course, the beer cans.
Tom Goins owns a campsite right along the water. He's seen more trash with more people floating the river over the summer. That's why he's pushed for a ban on single-use containers.
It's so much better to keep it out of the river in the first place than to let people throw them or drink them and sink them.
His wish could become a reality. During a September meeting, San Marcos City Council members unanimously said they'd like to take steps towards creating a single-use container ban at all city parks.
Let's do it. Let's leave behind a legacy of a cleaner, greener future.
It's a change neighboring city Martindale already made.
Non-disposable containers only.
The city adopted an ordinance 5 years ago banning disposable containers at their parks and on the water. As a result, Martindale Councilmember Mike McLeod says they're seeing a lot less trash and noise compared to San Marcos.
It's such mayhem there. We're one of the few places that could actually bring a family.
Ultimately, Goins says without this ban, neither the river nor his business can take much more of this trash. Sarah Al-Sheikh, KXAN News.
The San Marcos Parks and Recreation Advisory Board discussed the ban at its meeting last Wednesday, and they created a subcommittee to further look into the idea.
And for some context, the city of New Braunfels reinstated its can ban in 2018, prohibiting floaters from bringing cans and other disposable containers onto the river. A 2014 ruling called the city's ban unconstitutional, but a few years later, the state appeals court reversed that decision, allowing the city to reinforce the ban. You can still drink whatever you want while you float on the river. It just has to be in a non-disposable container while inside the city limits, which includes the Comal River and the Guadalupe River below Green Bridge.
And one thing we've been waiting to happen, at least for this season, is to see those water levels return to a reasonable level.
Right. We're waiting for our rainy October. Typically delivers for us, especially during an El Nino year. Right. We're hoping for the best. We've gotten some rain today. It's mainly been in the hill country. Here we are still in September waiting for that rainier month to arrive. Over the past 6 hours, though, you can see a couple isolated storms in the hill country. They kind of blew up a little bit from Llano to Mason and Gillespie County a little earlier this afternoon. But they did drop some heavy rain totals out there. Nothing fell, though, from Austin eastward, and the disturbance that brought most of that rain to the hill country is now sinking south of I-10, bringing some welcome rain down to the desert, Del Rio, Rio Grande Valley, but no, not to Austin, rather. 94 degrees right now in Austin, not much cooler even with the clouds blowing off of those thunderstorms through the afternoon. It is a lot cooler, though, where we've seen the thicker clouds and rainfall. 87 in Mason, 85 in Fredericksburg. Meantime, it's awful out there in Rockdale, 95 at 5 p.m. in late September. We do have the possibility of a couple more isolated downpours for the next couple of hours, but this model is being a little generous, especially from Austin eastward. Still, we'll be on the lookout for a couple little pop-up showers through the evening drive. Overall, they're getting less and less likely, though, the later we get in the evening. And after sundown tonight, the rain chance fades back to the big zero, and that's where it stays for a dry and hot end to the month over the next several days. The big heat dome is still in control of our weather from northwestern Mexico, but as we started to pick up on yesterday, we're still on track for it in your latest forecast. A big change in the weather comes later next week. So let's fast forward and get to the good stuff. Over the next few days, we'll be watching that heat dome slowly shrink away locally as a stormier weather pattern replaces it on the west coast. By the weekend, this stormy weather pattern is still several states away, leaving us hot and dry for the Texas football game. It's going to take a few days. This stormy weather pattern eventually, though, breaks down the heat ridge and heads toward Texas toward the end of next week, which, of course, is the beginning of Austin City Limits Music Festival, weekend number 1. That's when rain appears to become more likely, and if we're lucky, it's not for sure, but a cold front may even accompany this system. Have to stay tuned for details on that. Over the next 7 days, not much rain as that pattern hasn't yet arrived. But when you run the models out 10 days through next weekend, or at least part of it, that's when we start to see more appreciable rain chances and possibly some cooler weather. So stay tuned. We'll keep you updated every single day with the latest on this welcome, hopefully, change. Tonight's forecast, big bright moon out there, mostly clear skies after dark. Low temperatures dropping to 72 in town. Tomorrow, partly cloudy with no more chance of rain for a few days. 96, not much wind. This hot, stagnant weather is unfortunately leading to a pollution problem. The Clean Air Force of Central Texas declaring an ozone action day, including the Austin Metro tomorrow. This means the pollution levels are a little higher than we might like. So folks with heart disease, lung disease, elderly folks, and also the very young might want to consider your time and especially your exertion outdoors. Try not to breathe too much of that in during the afternoon. Other than that, hot, dry weather continues through the Texas football game on Saturday afternoon. Bet you didn't know it would be 95 when you planned on attending this game at the end of September. A slight chance of a shower gets started on the first day of October, Sunday. Chances of rain slowly rise through next Wednesday. But remember, the bulk of the rain comes beyond that forecast in the 8 to 14-day outlook. Wetter than normal October weather looking promising.
All right, David, thank you very much. There is movement in the urgent efforts to prevent a government shutdown, but no straight line to a deal. Separate short-term spending bills are working their way through the House and the Senate, but each version is destined to fail in the opposite chamber, where the opposite party is in power. The Senate's top Democrat issued a pointed message to top House Republican.
The only way out of a shutdown is bipartisanship, and by constantly adhering to what the hard right wants, you're aiming for a shutdown.
I don't see the support in the House.
And House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is trying to persuade a small group of conservatives within his own party who are holding out for more spending cuts. Some more moderate Republicans are showing willingness to work with Democrats to keep the government open.
Ahead, the link found between drinking diet soda during pregnancy and autism.
Right now, dozens arrested after a violent looting spree in Philadelphia. Retail theft forcing some big retailers to take drastic measures. Plus, as Hollywood writers head back to work, newly won guidelines on artificial intelligence ahead tonight.
Well, for decades, the loyal fans of Walt Disney have filled its theme parks and spent big bucks on memories and memorabilia, so much so that 18% go into debt, according to one study. Another reveals only 36% of guests actually brought kids to the park. Nearly half of Disney goers likely don't even have kids there. Researchers looked into the reasons for a, quote, Disney addiction. And there's reasons for that in adults: a craving for travel, sensation of smells, a desire to be influential, and fulfilling nostalgia.
Well, a new study found a link between autism diagnosis in boys and their mothers drinking diet soda. A team led by UT Health San Antonio researchers found the correlation in mothers who drank at least one diet soda daily or consumed an equivalent amount of the sweetener aspartame during pregnancy or while breastfeeding. But what's interesting is the researchers did not find a significant association if the mother had a girl. Digital reporter Sam Stark talked to one of the researchers about what else was found.
So what we found, Sam, was that if a boy had autism, the odds that his mother was drinking one or more diet sodas per day compared with boys without autism were 3 times higher. So a boy with autism had triple the odds of having had a mother who drank diet soda, one or more diet sodas per day during pregnancy or breastfeeding.
Now, this study results follow a June announcement from the World Health Organization that deemed aspartame a possible cause of cancer. And while doctors say drinking a can or two of diet soda doesn't pose too much of a risk to a person's health, you should still practice moderation. You can find more on how this study was conducted under this story over at KXAN.com.
Okay, gear up, Texas lottery players. Tonight's grand prize Powerball drawing has been raised to an estimated $850 million, which the cash value nearly $400 million. It is the 4th largest prize in Texas history and the 9th largest in U.S. lottery history. I'm getting excited just talking about this. Buy tickets soon because the drawing is just after 10 o'clock tonight.
We got to get our tickets.
Yes.
Right. All right. Well, coming up tonight on KXAN, it's the season finale of America's Got Talent. And then we're back with KXAN News at 10.
Join us an hour earlier for KXAN News at 9 on the CW Austin. And here's where to find us.